Here's a classic story. A contractor, father-son electrician team. They're using 2 self-storage units because they don't have a garage or they can't find space or whatever, right? But self-storage. And so between it, they got 200 square feet, or maybe they've got 2 larger ones, 400 square feet for all their equipment. They're still not driving their trucks into them, but they're storing supplies and inventory there. They're getting pushed out. They got nowhere to go. So in lies the opportunity in the pro storage. We're providing a home for them.
Welcome to the Path to Passive podcast, where we talk about building wealth and empowering lifestyle through commercial real estate investing for tech professionals. I always wish that other tech professionals reaching financial freedom had documented their journey along the way, so I'm doing it for the rest of us. Join us as we explore stories, many failures, and lessons learned along the way. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. Mr. Joe Downs, thank you so much for being here. I'm super stoked to have you here, like we were talking about back in the green room before we hit record here. You've been someone I've been watching you in Belrose Group. Belrose, how do you'll tell me in a second, but I've been watching you guys for a little while here, and I think what you guys are doing are so cool. You know, you have active side and passive side, and you know, you educate both sides with investor. And I'm not going to take away everything here. I want you to introduce yourself here too, but I'm just super excited to have you here. So would you please just give a little bit of background, how you would explain yourself, and then we'll dive right into it.
Well, Steven, first of all, thank you for having me. I don't think anyone's been that excited. I sure hope I don't let you down. Jeez, it's quite the buildup. Yeah, so you nailed it. Belrose Group. I mean, we have different divisions. There's Belrose Storage Group, which is where, you know, we'll buy some properties. But Belrose Group is the umbrella over it all. And we're passionate entrepreneurs, really, at the end of the day. We go out there, we do, and then we also teach. So in fact, that's kind of one of the things I talk about when I'm on stage or on podcasts or on talking to students is, you know, we're not gurus. We're not teachers who've heard how to do things. We're not gurus. In fact, I'm not even in love with that whole term. I'm a student, if anything. You know, they say mastery is a journey, not a destination, right? So I learn something every day. In fact, I'm delivering a Storage 100 series on YouTube right now. I'm about halfway through. I'm learning things as I go. I use AI to create some of the decks, and then I go through them and make sure, you know, I agree with each topic. So I'm a student of the game, is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And probably always will be. But that's what we are. We source, evaluate, underwrite, and close on self-storage deals and storage adjacents. And I know in the green room, I started rattling them off, and I think you wanted me to save that for a different part of the show, and we can. But we also, you know, we do have passive investments. We educate. So I came through an education program. Then we were invited to speak at it. It was Scott Myers and the Self-Storage Investing Academy. Then kind of took over the teaching. Now we took over all the student fulfillment. We completely changed it. We changed the whole program. We modernized it. And now we're about to digitize it, which is what I was mentioning in the green room. We can dig into that a little bit if you want to. But yeah, we're deal junkies. You know, we teach underwriting because we do it, not because, you know, we read a book on it, or not because we did it 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So we're actively in the game. And then with the right people, coachable people, right partnerships, whatever, we'll educate, we partner. We just love being in the game. We love everything about real estate, in particular self-storage, and then all of the storage adjacents.
Yeah. And one of the things I thought was really cool about your story is how you've talked multiple touch points of reinventing yourself. You know, the idea of what it means to be an entrepreneur really has this bedrock of resilience, right? And I know this kind of seems like lip service. You ever read it, you know, in a book or somewhere, it's like, well, you just got to keep reinventing yourself. But the story comes alive when you kind of hear it from someone, right? You're following someone's story and the twists and turns. And so, you know, if I'm not mistaken, you know, you're one of 12 kids, right? You wanted to be a financial advisor. You had owned a bar. You said, you know, the $100K that you invested in that was real life business lessons as well. And you were kind of just following your interests along the way. Is that about right?
Yeah. Well, you obviously did a little research or listened to a podcast. Yeah. You know, it's funny, Steven, at the end of the day, I'm just like anyone else who's with some grit. I look back at it all, I'm saying I'm just an idiot with some grit, and, you know, didn't because I wouldn't have called myself an entrepreneur that whole time. I can look back on it and you tell me that's the definition. I go, oh, yeah, okay. I do learn things along the way, try not to repeat mistakes. But yeah, but I think I'm no different than a lot of the people listening to this podcast right now. All right. I don't think I'm that much different. I think maybe maybe I took on more risks.
Mm-hmm.
Not from an uncalculated standpoint. I mean, maybe I put myself out there and tried something new and I didn't stick in a W-2 job. Sure. You could argue maybe I should have. Sometimes I wonder that myself, but I don't think that I did anything. You've probably heard me say this, and it's not just to sound funny and self-deprecating, but I'm truly not someone who's launching rockets or catching them from space. It's not me. Case in point, my son asked me to help him with his algebra 2 last night.
Mm.
Well, I had to call my daughter down, who's a senior in high school, because those years have passed.
Sure.
I still have a seventh grader I can help with math, but I think I capped out at geometry is what I learned. But the algebra 2, I just don't remember it anymore. And I was pretty good at math when I was growing up. So I don't know. I'm a curious. This is what I tell my kids. Be curious, not just to be curious, not judgmental. That's great advice for life, but just be curious about deals, real estate. Just how does it work? Why does this work or that not work? And I think I was able to stay curious through my life, some of which, by the way, I was forced to. When I lost the bar, I lost my income. I didn't have time to wallow in my own misery. I had to pick myself back up and figure out how I was going to pay the rent. You already know I'm one of 12.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't born with a silver spoon, and none were produced along the way.
Yeah.
So it was me. It was fight or flight. So, and I think, look, if your audience is even listening to this, they're the same way because they're looking for more. There's a reason they're listening to you, right? So I'm no different than them. In fact, I commend guys like you for doing this because I, being 52, rewind, 20 and 30 years ago, I didn't have podcasts to listen to.
Sure.
We didn't even have webinars to jump on. We didn't have cool ideas on Instagram and Facebook. It didn't exist.
Yeah, I still look back at some of the things like 10 years ago when they were using like GoToMeeting webinars. I'm like, man, that was only like 10 years ago. Look at these.
I just brought that up. We were having a funny conversation. I said, because we were talking about Zoom, and I was like, do you guys remember what we used before Zoom? No one could remember it. And I said, there were only 2 names that you would go to. And then COVID hit and the entire world within a week was using Zoom.
Yep.
And we'd never heard of GoToMeeting ever again.
Right.
Or remember what the other one was? That predated even GoToMeeting?
I can't say I do.
Skype.
Oh yeah. Well, to be fair, there was MSN Messenger, but that wasn't.
Yeah, but to have meetings like this, like a Zoom, it was only Skype and GoToMeeting. Maybe there was another one, but it wasn't widely adopted.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of wild. But you mentioned something about being curious, and I wanted to get your take on this because you've talked about sort of Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, that you mentioned the book behind me, Who Not How, and you're in that program from Dan Sullivan, strategic coach as well, like, one of the best entrepreneur coaches out there.
Yep.
And he has this concept about unique ability, right? The things you like and that you're good at. And clearly, if you're following your curiosity, right, then, this is something you like. So, or whatever you're going after is something you like. So did you feel like you had to, how does that concept resonate for you, unique ability, and finding what it is for you?
So when I read Who Not How the second or third time, because if I'm being fair, I listened to it, but
sure,
I was also multitasking. We don't have to get into how I consume my information, but I just no stolen valor. I do read. I'm not that bad, but I do listen to a lot. And really the second time the first time I got it, I was like, oh, there's a lot of concepts I missed here. And I like to listen to things 2 and 3 times if they're really good. And Who Not How I listened to 3 times. It's that good. Mm-hmm. And how did it resonate with me? Like, I joined Strategic Coach because of it.
Oh, really?
because I needed more of that line of thinking. And it's truly, this took me a year of strategic coach to even do what they tell you to do day one, which he says in the book as well. It's just, we're humans,
Sure.
right? And this is like my journey with AI, which has been incredible, but we're human. Our brains are feeble.
Hmm.
We are humans. And sometimes things just don't register right away and they take a while. And it wasn't until about a year into strategic coach and going over the same concepts and but packaged differently that and I was talking in one of the meetings that it just clicked. And that was, I'm really good at certain things and I can do a lot of things, but I'm not good at them. Where is my time better spent? And it's not even a linear equation. It's an exponential
Hmm.
effect, because if I'm doing something I'm not good at, I probably don't like it. And if I don't like it, it's more of a downward spiral than it is a forward, you know, exponential output. If I'm doing what I love to do, I'm doing more of it faster and can create more positive productivity from that way. And then knowing if I just take what I'm not good at, and look, it took me the first thing they tell you in strategic coach, they start talking about get an executive assistant. It took me 2 years to get an executive assistant. I told you from the get-go, I'm not that smart. I do learn along the way, but sometimes it takes a little while. But in all seriousness, it's been mind-blowing. It game changing for me to say, all right, not just me. I looked at my whole team now and said, all right, this is your unique ability. Clearly, I know that. Why am I having you do this? I can't have you do that. That's why I'm constantly let down when I ask you to do this. Same for myself. Why am I asking myself to do things? I let myself down because I either don't do them, put them off. They need to be done. Why don't I just give them to somebody else? And one of the other things we say a lot as strategic coach is progress over perfection. So 80% not perfect, but 80% done by somebody else is probably 200% of what I would have put out.
Yeah.
In progress, and probably 500% in perfection, even though it's not perfect.
Sure.
Right? In the quality of the product. So you combine the two and it's a no-brainer.
Especially if it's something that they enjoy doing and they're
Yes.
better at.
Yeah.
Right.
The easy ones are, I'm a relationship guy. I do the talking, the relationship, the sales, whatever. You don't want me in the financial models or the accounting, right?
Sure.
But boy, does my accountant, our senior accountant, she loves to tie off numbers, right? That's
Great.
her thing. It would drive me insane. I couldn't do it. It's just same with like when you get any details. I am not a detail person. When we close a deal, the closings always take 2 days. I don't, no matter what. There's like anywhere between 70 and 100 emails. I'm copied on them. I don't read one of them. I don't care. I'm not interested. If they need me, they can pull me in for a high level issue. How do we solve it? I'm great at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my dopamine hit, it's gone.
Yeah.
As soon as we sign the contract to go under contract, and as soon as we clear any hurdles where I'm not really needed anymore it's not just about your unique ability, it's about your usability too.
Sure.
If I'm not effective, if I don't feel like I'm adding a ton of value in a certain part of a process, I don't want to be in it.
Yeah. And so I'm glad you mentioned that about, looking at it from what you do and how you build your team around that, right? And some of the impact, because, that's the follow-on concept. And the reason why I'm diving a little bit deeper on here too is because, well, I think it's really important. And you being a strategic coach, I wanted to get your firsthand, input about it, because many people listening, yes, this is real estate, but to your point, it's business and it affects your life, right?
Oh, it's not just business, it's personal life too.
Yes, exactly. And so, people are listening are thinking about, well, I want to invest because, at the very end, hopefully I get more money and I get more time to change my life. But it really is about, the time and impact along the way, right? The freedom of time.
Oh, 100%. I mean, a lot of what we talk about, everyone's an entrepreneur there. So everything you're doing in your business should be driving personal goals.
Yeah.
Right. Unless something you're doing, like I had a personal goal that probably if I'm being honest, isn't really about business today.
Mm-hmm.
But I launched a podcast as well. Nothing to do with self-storage. I'm also hosting a self-storage podcast with Scott Myers. But before that, I launched my own podcast about AI.
Oh, cool.
And it's with an AI guru because I'm in an AI mastermind with Peter Swain.
Oh, cool.
And I joined that mastermind for my business, but as I was in the mastermind, I kept realizing there's so many concepts because I'm on the mastermind and I'm on my own AI journey, and it's pretty good. I know your listeners are mostly tech experts,
Yep.
so I'm probably the dumb one on here, but my AI journey, believe it or not, your audience excluded, I'm actually pretty far ahead of most people because I've been leaning in and embracing it for a while. I was amazed by how many people I talked to related to what people that should be using AI for more than just polishing an email.
Yeah.
And the responses I was getting from people like, this is, it's the devil, or it's awful. It's going to take over the world. I'm not even going to try, whatever. I don't want to go too far on the tangent here, but the point is I said, there's got to be a way to bridge this. These people just don't understand it.
Right.
So I pitched it to Peter Swain. We're 8-9 episodes in. We're having fun. But that was a personal goal, right? And so that became a personal goal inside of Strategic Coach that I want to do because I'd never hosted a podcast. I thought it'd be fun. And I frankly was a little selfish because that meant I got to be with Peter every week talking about AI.
Sure.
And so I was learning more, but I'm having fun. But other than that, everything else in Strategic Coach that you're doing for your business is supposed to be driving your personal life, freeing up time, more time with family. How long do you want to live? Right? Dan Sullivan has this exercise we go through. Like, if you think about, like, I think he's 80 something years old.
He talks about.
No, I think he's like 150. I think he's only.
Oh, really?
I think he's having his midlife crisis in his 80s.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I think I was like maybe 120 or 130 because I was, but if you think about it, it's all a mindset shift. Just like I tell people with AI, you have to reprogram your brain, change the way you're thinking. If you really want to use AI, it's a thinking partner. I say that, and Strategic Coach says something very different. Dan Sullivan doesn't say retrain your brain. He kind of does, but we have a saying there: you have to think about your thinking. Right? It's kind of a 2 or 3 layer deep thought process, but you really have to change the way you think about the way you used to think.
It's a matter of self-awareness.
It is.
I want to dive more into the AI and real estate piece, but I thought that this was really important to talk about. And, just to comment before we pivot is the idea of who, not how, and you doing this podcast. This is for you, and I would think just kind of keying in is freedom of purpose. Right? There's levels to that: freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationships, freedom of purpose. And so that who, not how, collaborating with someone else here, Peter Swain, really kind of speaks to freedom of purpose. Would you agree on that before we move on?
Oh, 100%. Well, first of all, who, not how is giving me the time to do it. It's not a tremendous lift, but it's a lift. But also, you nailed it, the purpose. It's making me feel, I've got people now, they're emailing, they're commenting on Facebook, the social media, and they're like, you're really helping me out. I'm like, this is why I did this. I wanted to expose what I was learning about AI and how it could help entrepreneurs. And so that's why we're doing it. But it's not, what's funny is it's not just helping entrepreneurs, because we're talking about ways to help you in your personal life with AI, planning vacations or take a picture of your fridge, and come up with a recipe. It's just weird life hacks, fun stuff that your brain doesn't think of, because some of us are further along. I'm trying to get there, but even with AI, we have to think about our thinking or retrain your brain.
Yeah, there's got to be something else that you can probably do an episode on. I would think it's, where it's the who, not how idea, but the spin on that is like, I don't know. It's got to be something like, clever, like the 3 words, like not who, not how, but like what, I don't know,
Which AI tool, not how?
Yeah, something like that. You know what I mean? Anyway. So let's talk one of the core pieces to talk about here is self-storage real estate, right? There's 2 pieces to this, the active and the passive side. Now, one of the things I thought was really cool here, we'll get into, is how you're actually building a new class because of trends that you're seeing. So let's kick off this conversation with, what have you and Belrose invested in already, storage-wise, And then let's move into what pro storage class is and how you got that insight.
Yeah. So background is we went through a course. My partner, originally Tom Dunkel and I, who I know you've met, and then we joined a mastermind. Same thing, Scott Myers, and we started, going out and hitting the road, picking up the phone, making the phone calls after we went through an education course. And then that's when we joined up with another partner, Tim Kane. And so it became the three of us, and we just started clicking. We focused on it, and we bought one and then another and another. And next thing you know, we own 20.
Nice.
And along the way, we bought one that was a little different than the others. And it's been a 2-year journey to get to this point of a lot of research, a lot of pitching the deal, the concept, I should say, concept and the deal, because we had to put the structure together to build Pro Storage. It was received at first, but we were pioneers. At least for some of the folks we pitched, I don't know what it was. We were just, they weren't in love with it, or they weren't in love with us, one or the other.
It was new. It was new. They didn't see it before.
But look, this is the normal process of going through. We've got a new concept that we're going to want to not just buy, we're going to build it, right? And what have you built before? Nothing. We've expanded some of our storage facilities. Does that count? So, but who not how went and assembled an amazing team. So our owner's rep is as experienced as you would want in Barry Sherman at S3. And by the way, these are all people that we've met in our travels and self-storage and different masterminds and conferences and relationships. So then our Spartan Construction Company, Spartan Construction Management is their name. They build self-storage. That's what they do. So this is just bigger self-storage. And we put the team together, and I went and I pitched it to we'll call them friends, but they have invested in me, and they'll tell you in me personally, even though it was in business. Anyone with, that's writing those kinds of checks with that much money, they're focusing on who you are as the operator. Obviously, they want to understand the deal themselves, but they're really betting on the jockey,
totally.
Right? So they had trust and faith in me from very successful transactions in the past and completely different businesses. And so they're grateful that they took the ride with us here. We're about 70% complete on our first development for Pro Storage, which the brand name is storepro.com, if I can give a little shameless plug there. And it's going vertical right now in Greenville, South Carolina. And we've got another piece of dirt tied up right outside of Atlantic City, New Jersey. And we're looking at some other sites as well down in South Carolina.
Cool.
And what it is, I think you asked, why did we see this, or why are we even doing this? And Steven, to being honest, what's interesting is we're pioneers, but we're not pioneers. We're pioneers in the sense that first of all, I coined the term Pro Storage. Caveat, asterisk, for our space. The reason I couldn't trademark it is because the cloud guys, so your audience probably knows all about Pro Storage, because you cloud storage guys already took it. You Amazon Web guys.
Those people, man.
Yeah. Anyway, so I couldn't coin the term because it was already being used by the digital folks, but it still fit to describe what it was, because what it was, we bought a facility that was built by a plumber for contractors, and then he just kept expanding it. And this was down in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is, not a huge town. It's about 300,000 people. And not only did he build one, but a couple other guys down there built them as well. So Wilmington is this like little petri dish of this product that's very different than you see in most of the places. Now, that said, we found 30 or 40 other similar types of properties around the country that are just like what we own in Wilmington and are just like what we're building. And then you've got some tangents from there, like some of these, sometimes they're like a condo, similar type of product where they condo them, and maybe they're like car club lounges or like man caves or whatever. They're like these higher end other functions to them. But at the end of the day, what this guy built in Wilmington and what we bought and what we're building are just bigger self-storage facility, bigger units that look like a self-storage facility. So give a compare and contrast for a second, if that helps. So your typical self-storage unit, your most common unit size is the 10 by 10. It's 100 square feet, 10 wide, 10 deep, typically an 8-foot ceiling. All right. Your largest size of a self-storage facility, I don't know. You'll have a handful of 10 by 15s, 20 by 20s, maybe a 20 by 20. That's huge in self-storage. That's 400 square feet.
Yeah.
That's the 4-bedroom apartment of the multifamily complex. There's not very many of them, right?
Yep.
Our smallest size in pro storage is 450 square feet. We go up to 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
And then I'll compare and contrast the other side of that, because we kind of sit between self-storage and small bay flex.
Yep.
So small bay flex, smallest size is probably 1,000 square feet. And you'll typically find that 2,000 to 5,000 square feet. And small bay flex is still not a huge product. That's becoming in vogue. And the difference there is small bay flex, you actually have the flex part is you actually have an office in it.
And the thing so let's kind of make that, someone who's listening who may not be familiar with this, and I appreciate the contrast. You called the 10 by 10 or the 100 square feet is kind of like your words, if I remember correctly, is kind of like the 2-bedroom, right?
The 2-bedroom apartment, yeah.
the
if you know multifamily, you know the most common size is 2 bedrooms. That's the 10 by 10 in self-storage.
And so how this ends up translating is that it's for different purposes, right? You have all these different flavors, configurations, right, of storage or self-storage, right? And it could be, you've mentioned before, for like boats, for like RVs for storage. Of course, there's ones that are, right around where anyone listening might live as well, which could be more around some apartments as well to store smaller stuff or mid-sized stuff. But it's really kind of purpose-built, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's, when you're mentioning these different sizes, it's really purpose-built for kind of what's local around the people living there too, right? So where I wanted to direct the conversation was what you were talking about with this plumber, right? And the contractor who built this particular self-storage, and you were seeing the trends of things like e-commerce needing, and smaller businesses needing to store things as well.
So there's a couple of paradigm shifts that are happening. First was e-commerce, now AI. So e-commerce, you nailed it. The big boxes, I'll give you 2 stats that'll blow your mind. So Amazon, you're familiar with, and Walmart are the 2 largest e-tailers. And the stats that it'll blow your mind are right now, Amazon knows if they can't deliver a product to me by tomorrow, assuming a normal cutoff, I think it's based on a 2 p.m. cutoff. Mm-hmm. If they can't deliver a product by tomorrow, they're losing 25% of sales.
Crazy.
This time next year, the article we read was if they can't deliver it same day, they'll lose 25% of sales. So in order to achieve that, and we've all seen, I don't care, unless you haven't left your house in 5 years, we've all seen the 1 million square foot distribution facilities that are popping up along the sides of highways for all this distribution. So the entire logistics and distribution network in the United States is booming.
Yes.
Right? Which, by the way, bleeds into this whole conversation if we ever get to it with Truck Parking Club. But in either case, that gets the goods to the region. Now they got to get it to your door, right? Mm-hmm. And so they've been gobbling up, renting, buying all of the infill existing warehouse location, 100,000, 50,000, 20,000. In those, the former tenants of those places or the existing tenants that get pushed out every day were your small businesses and your contractors. And the rates, and you can see this in rate, what you pick a market, and it doesn't matter. The rates are different in different markets, but almost at every market, you're seeing the rate of that product, 5,000, 20,000, 100,000 square feet. Whatever it used to cost, it's twice as much because of the downward pressure demand. So a lot of times, here's a classic story. A contractor, father-son electrician team, they're using 2 self-storage units because they don't have a garage or they can't find space or whatever, right? But self-storage. And so between it, they got 200 square feet, or maybe they've got 2 larger ones, 400 square feet for all their equipment, whatever. They're still not driving their trucks into them, but they're storing supplies and inventory there. The only time they leave self-storage is because they outgrow it. And they outgrow it and they go to a bigger space that might be 3,000 square feet that they're sharing with somebody, or if they can find it. I'll tell you, it's really hard to find 1,000 or 2,000 square feet in any market of small bay flex or just storage, just the flex part,
So
or the small bay part.
That's the niche then you're talking about.
It's hard to find it. So when they get pushed out of storage, or they voluntarily leave storage, but now they're facing they've too much square footage, they don't need it, and now they're facing twice the cost of it. They're getting pushed out. They got nowhere to go. So in lies the opportunity in the pro storage. We're providing a home for them. Is it a home for everyone? No. We will have people outgrow us too. You can't run your business out of our units. If you grow, and I wish you the best and hope you do, and I hope we're the place that's your first stop or your growth spot, or even if you go somewhere else and you need more space, you come back and rent some more from us. But you're not going to have a staff of 10 working at our facility. That's where you're going to need to get your own 20,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet, or whatever the right number is. And again, we're pro business. This is very pro business friendly. We wish you the best. Thanks for being with us. Obviously we're talking a couple of years from now when they outgrow us, but that's the whole purpose, is to provide this opportunity, this place in between where you don't need to work out of it. If you're out on the road all day, you're in someone's house, you're doing whatever you're doing, or I'm talking trades right now, right? Because the trade, you might have a billing company, bookkeeping company, virtual. You might do it from your dining room table, and you don't need an actual office. So that's your trades. That's one use case. Move out of business, flip to the other side, which we already have too down in Wilmington, is boats and RVs. We're big enough, tall. I didn't get into the sizes. Well, I did. We're 500 to 1,000. But our ceiling heights are 60 feet. You could drive your RV or your van with ladders on top right into the unit and leave it there overnight. So we are a place for that. Boats, RVs, man caves, anything on a trailer. In between, you've got small businesses that, let's say a catering company. They have a retail front in a strip mall or something. They might pay $35 a foot for their 300 square feet of office, or whatever they need there for, a couple salespeople, whatever. But that's where you're going to meet the bride and groom. It's got to be a nice office. It's got to look nice. It's got to look like you put on nice events, all that stuff. But you don't need to pay that much per square foot to store tables and chairs and racks of glasses and dishes.
Yep.
Right. So that's where, or if you've got a furniture tour, a boutique furniture store, and you've got extra inventory, where are you going to store that? You don't want to store that in the $30, the retail cost. You want that in a warehouse somewhere. Those warehouse spaces are really hard to find.
Yeah.
And there's the downward pressure of e-commerce. It's gobbling up all warehouse space everywhere, which, by the way, I have no use case for them yet, other than I wouldn't be surprised if they start renting from us too.
Yeah. What I think is really cool about this, and why I wanted to highlight that, is because we obviously listen to a bunch of podcasts. I have people come on from all the different asset classes, and there is sometimes this question of, is self-storage relevant or still have a future, right? Multifamily will talk about the amount of competitors, so to speak, and you'll hear a similar story out there about, is self-storage still a good place to be in? And it's like, well, that's such a broad question. And if you're paying attention to trends and you're thinking, what else can you do to serve the demand, right, which you've talked about, then this is just one more thing, one more purpose-built kind of storage based on what's happening.
Oh, totally agree. I can expound on that if you want to, but I mean, self-storage is local. People ask us that question all the time. Is self-storage great in Atlanta? Sure, I'll show you 100 markets it is and 100 it isn't. It all depends on growth rates and trends and supply and demand. So, but self-storage does phenomenal, by the way, in great growth markets and in recessions. Unfortunately, people downsize or they get divorced, the dislocation. I think there used to be 40s. Now I think there's like 60s. I can't even remember them all, but
death, disability, divorce, disease.
You sound like a financial advisor. But dislocation. Yeah, no, all of that leads to self-storage. People move in. When the economy is downsizing, people are moving in together. The stuff goes into self-storage, or the kids are moving back home, whatever. There's constantly demand for self-storage. When times are good, times are bad. Really, the biggest challenge to self-storage is self-storage. Is it oversupplied in a certain area? That's really it. Other than that, if the economics are there, self-storage will always be good.
So let's talk about I've only got you for a little bit longer here, so I wanted to kind of complete this through line about, unique ability, about, using the most of, leaning into what you have. And usually, you're time rich or you're time poor, you've got capital to use, and maybe you've
Mhm.
gotten, the quote unquote gray hairs of experience that Joe, you're looking wonderful, by the way,
No,
there.
I wish I
So,
had more gray hairs, if I'm to be honest with you. A little
and
too thinning up there.
but you've got a lot to teach you and your team. And so that's kind of the triangle, right? You've got OPM. We've all heard other people's money, but there's really other people's time, OPT, and there's other people's experience, so to speak, as well. And you guys do, not only can people invest with you, right, in a passive perspective, but you're also got this thing you're working on too, where you're connecting this triangle of people. So can you talk a little bit about both sides?
Yeah. So thank you for that. It's a trend I've been watching. So as I mentioned, I went through an education program. Now we stand on stage. We just had an academy last week, and then we do all the fulfillment. But what kept eating away at me is we're at these academies, 50, 60 people there. Some of them are go-getters. They're going to sign up. They're going to go do it. They're going to do exactly what I did. And others, they've got money, but they either don't have the time. Maybe they're a doctor.
Mm.
In fact, one guy there was a doctor. He loves it. He wants to build generational wealth, wants the tax write-offs, all that stuff. He's not going to go do the gritty things it takes to do to go find a self-storage facility. And then, underwrite it, manage it, close it, manage it, whatever. He doesn't want to do that. So you naturally say, well, that's a passive investor. Yeah, but they want more than that. Right. So, and they also want to understand what they're investing in. I think a lot of folks that used to just write checks and hope are now saying, wait a second, with all this technology, all this information, AI now, I can actually learn how these things work. So I'm talking to these folks who are, this isn't for me because I don't want to do it, but I'd invest in it.
Mhm.
But I want to know what I'm investing in. So, and long story short, because we were taking over this program and I'm trying to bring it into the 21st century.
Mhm.
This is the original education. Scott Myers is the original at this and done a phenomenal job. He was my mentor, he coached us, but he's moving on from the industry, right? He's moving up and moving on. And that's okay. That happens. I'm taking it over, but I want to put a new face on it, new spin on it. And really, I want to acknowledge and what's happening today with AI, with how people not only want to consume information and learn, but also how they want to invest and how they want to be educated when they invest.
So
So we're
ultimately, what
creating,
does that mean?
yeah, so we're creating a community that's going to still serve the same purpose of educating the doers, the go-getters, the what I'm calling the prospectors and the finders and the deal makers, the guys that are go out there and either, pound the phones looking for deals, everything I used to do and still do, or pound the pavement and start making relationships with owners, but a lot of them lack the capital. So I'm trying to match up what I'm calling GP partners with actual operators, the guys that are finding the deals and going to operate it. But the issue was a lot of the passive check writers. Well, they might meet me and know me, and maybe they can invest in my deals if we bring, but they don't know Steven Arita, who just learned how to buy a self-storage deal, nor do they trust him
Mhm.
because he's brand new. He's never bought one before. So how do we bridge that gap? So that's what we're doing through this community where we'll make the map. We've educated everybody on both sides. Both parties should be able to underwrite this deal. At least one party should look at the deal that's underwritten, the check writer, and say, I agree with these findings. Yes, I agree with the way this deal is going to work. And then my company, Belrose, or the platform's called Storage Moguls, but Belrose at the end of the day is who's putting it on
Mhm.
and controlling and owning and operating it. We're going to put the stamp of approval on the deal. We're going to asset manage the deal. So you're never lost in the dark with someone you don't know, right? So we're going to bring the check writers together with the hungry dogs that are out there finding the deals, make the partnerships. We're going to stay in the middle of it and oversee the entire transaction all the way through. And there's not enough time on this podcast to tell you all the benefits and why that's such a good thing and why it's a great idea. But it really comes down to the community. And if not for technology, we wouldn't be able to do this. It would be way too hard. It'd be too time consuming. I'd be on the phone all day. Now we can actually match people up in a digital platform and community and communicate that way and do webinars and trainings. And it's just we're even going to have clones on there for our students. Yeah, our entire knowledge base at their fingertips to ask questions if we're not available. Middle of the night, middle of the day, you need us. So our entire base there, video libraries, chat box that reference videos that cover those topics. I mean, it's
AI
all going to be
clones,
there.
you mean?
Both chatbot in the community, but then also an AI clone of myself, my lead underwriter, and my other partner, Tim, who's leading our Store Pro projects.
Super cool. I know we're not at the end here, but since you just mentioned that, where would be, seems like the opportune moment for you to tell everyone where they can go find that now.
It's not, when's this going to air? Because
I mean, whenever you want it to air.
So to be safe, why don't we email me at joe@belroseam.com, BELROSE, A as in asset, M as in management.com. But when it goes live, it's not live yet. When it goes live, it'll be storagemoguls.ai.
Perfect. I'll make sure that is in the show notes then. We'll keep it safe. If you're interested, go check that out. Go do that. Awesome. I got you about for 5 minutes more. You've kind of hinted there at how AI and real estate are coming together. I think the biggest parts I'm sort of hearing is, like the knowledge bases, the AI components, as well as, and the agents as well. Are there any other ways that your AI application to real estate is exciting for you?
Yeah. So, and we're doing this for our students too. So we've created a few GPTs and we're still going with it. For instance, in self-storage, for us, everything's about the market. If you don't love that market, if that market doesn't make sense to own and operate there, it doesn't matter what the deal looks like. You can skip the deal and move on to the next. So, it used to take a new student, probably take 45 minutes to an hour to underwrite a market. We've created a GPT that does that in, I don't know, 4 to 5 seconds for them now. It might have some follow-up items. So maybe with the follow-up items, if it couldn't find exactly what we're looking for and check all the boxes, maybe it takes them 10 minutes now. But that's one. Another one, these are kind of, I'll call them silly at my level, but for some people they're amazing, is LOI generators, right? A GPT that generates an LOI, just professionally done LOI with all the right components done the right way, make sure you're not missing anything. And then this might even seem the silliest, but I actually think it's the most important, and it's the LOI email generator. In other words, a lot of times we're sending an offer to an owner who thinks their facility is worth $1 million and it's not, it's worth $700,000. Well, it's a huge delta, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I record all of my conversations as an example with the seller because it's not the notes that I need. It's what I missed. It's the qualitative, the things like when we sell, we're going to ride motorcycles across the country and do this and do that. And, with this and that, whatever, all of that qualitative stuff. I want AI. I want whichever AI, well, in this case is chat because it's a GPT, but I want it knowing not only what the underwriting looks like, what the LOI looks like, what the entire conversation looks like and how it went, because it picks up on things that I miss.
Oh yeah.
And then it generates an email that for the cover letter email for the LOI, so that when they receive this email, they're going to open up an attachment that's $300,000 less. That, you do that, you're unhappy. You're like, jerks, this, that.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, the very first time I used it, I knew it worked. I was rejected, but it was the way I was rejected that I knew it worked. It said, "I respectfully decline your offer." Steven, in the past, I would just be ghosted, one line, doesn't work, not interested, whatever. That was the past. Usually I just didn't respond. Mm-hmm. I've been rejected a few times now with very nice responses because of the way the LOI is being written. So look, you can just take ChatGPT and write an email, but if you load it with all of this information into it, and then you obviously prompt it for the outcome you want, hey, this guy's going to open up this email and I want him to feel good about an offer that's $300,000 less than he's expecting.
Yes.
It writes it that way. So just little things like that. And then we're not finished with it, still in development, but a full underwrite. So we've got like quick underwrite GPTs, but the full underwrite's going to be, I think it's going to take a little while longer, but we're getting there.
That sounds insanely powerful. And have all those inputs come into that on something like an LOI email, like you said, ride motorcycles or whatever after they sell, because those are, this is a persuasion thing too, but it's wrapped respectfully on the offer.
Well,
So
and I'll tell you that GPT in the instructions, since you picked up on that, are, it has the peak end principle in there.
yeah,
We've got the Viktor Frankl, so works by Viktor Frankl for mind
nice.
condition. So they are written. They're being written in a way that hopefully persuades and influences.
Cool, man. I'm not going to do a rapid fire or any of those things, but you brought up your kids earlier, and I wanted to close on this one because I thought, it's clear that you're doing things for purpose because you want to have fun, and you've, had this twist and turn of life of resilience, but reinvention, and you probably think about the future a bit as well. So my question to you is, you said seventh grader and senior.
Mhm.
What do you, instead of the, what would you tell your future self? What do you hope for your kids based on what you've learned about, about having to reinvent for your life and entrepreneurship, and also about AI coming on scene?
And I also have a 16-year-old, so sophomore. He's the one I couldn't help with honors pre-calc. What have so I talk to them all the time about their future. You didn't ask me for a book, but if you did, I would have said, "Be your
Please.
future self now."
Okay. Benjamin Hardy. Yeah.
Yes, because my kids know about Mr. Beast, right? In fact, they introduced me to Mr. Beast, and I had no idea that he was going to be the central character of this book,
Mm-hmm.
Be Your Future Self Now, at least the opening character in the book. So I talk to them all the time about, if this is what you want to do, we need to start doing it now and start acting like you're doing it now. And that's for more for mindset. If you ask them what's the one thing I say to them the most, it's be curious, not judgmental. I'm certainly imparting on them and trying to learn for myself, by the way. And I hope that comes across as I'm still a student. I'm still trying to, I hope someday that I'm talking to you as someone who built 300 store pros. So I need to start acting like the guy who did today. And that's part of it. But by the way, I have a long way to go there, but not just on the store pros and acting like it. But, I'm trying to lead by example, but that means that, I'm still human as well. And then with AI, I have them leaning big time into AI, using it, not just to polish emails, not just for research. I have actually all of them, but my older son, the 16-year-old, has adopted this the most. And this works into exactly how we're teaching too, with our new digital platform. You've heard of Google Notebook LM.
Of course.
Okay. Well, my son now records his classes in school, and I don't know if the school is okay with that. He's not doing it for any nefarious reasons. It's just for learning.
For learning.
But
for learning.
he puts them into Google Notebook LM. And frankly, I think every school should be leaning in and teaching this way, because he now gets multimodal media. Because I don't know if you know how you learn best. I'm visual and I love listening.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he's getting, let's just say the night before test, he's not only watching the video that it creates from the content, the slide deck, he does the flashcards, quizzes, and then on the way to school in the morning, he listens to the podcast, the interactive podcast. So he's getting all of the senses with the same information packaged differently. He's getting straight A's except for Algebra 2, which is a little harder to do in Google LM, and his dad is failing and helping him, but his sister did. And that's what I'm doing with our storage education. We're taking all that content and using Google Notebook LM to provide it to folks, so that because there's so much to learn. I don't know how you learn it best. So you might as well get it in every way you want and immerse yourself in it, because that's how you learn it best. To me, that's how you learn anything best. It's just multimodal. So that's what we're trying to do with it. And that's what my kids are doing right now, and it's working.
I love it, man. Your thirst for continued learning and being a student definitely seems like it'd be a great example for your kids. Thank you for sharing. And with that, man, Mr. Joe Downs, Belrose Group, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you. And best of luck on all your endeavors. I will continue to keep watching for everything that you do. Appreciate you.
My pleasure, and appreciate you.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Path to Passive. We love connecting with our listeners and those on the path to architecting their wealth and improving their lives. Feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see in the future episodes. Get in touch with us through email or Instagram. See you next week for a new episode.